I find it deeply fascinating to learn about people's favorite Mario characters. Everyone has a Mario Kart main, and asking somebody who they play in Mario Kart is a very fun conversation starter. DK with a solid Wario secondary, by the way. And part of the reason it's so interesting to me is that the Mario series is basically a children's playset. With very few exceptions like the RPGs, the characters of the Mario universe don't have character arcs or writing, and so the reason we love them is driven by characterization and very personal reasons. If you're a younger sibling, you're probably more attached to Luigi. If you played one of the older Mario Karts and are a girl, maybe you got attached to the one female character that was actually in those games. Or maybe you just think Donkey Kong is funny. I don't know. You make of the Mario series what you want to make of it, and that's also why there's something fascinating about learning which obscure, lesser known, or forgotten Mario characters have stuck with people. In a series as monumental as Mario, sometimes it's fun to reach to the bottom of the toy chest and obsess over some characters who aren't really mainstays. Today I'll be going over some underutilized Mario characters I've taken a bizarre sort of liking to and think should return to the series. For most of these cases, they're characters who I think there's a reason to bring back, and I'll go over some ideas on how these forgotten characters could come back if Nintendo ever decides to remember them. Will they? Probably not, but a guy can dream. My one rule is that any characters I discuss can't have a notable appearance in a game that came out less than 5 years ago. So, no K rule. Characters have to be officially licensed, and can't be characters who were cut from development or were never in a Mario game. So no 7 Granddad or Wario Peachy. Trust me, they would not be in this video even without this rule. Remakes of older games or remasters or re-releases won't be counted as well for my 5-year rule. That's all I have to set up for this, so let's go, Mamma Mia, Wahoo, Mushroom Kingdom, here we come. SpongeBob. Actually, I have one more thing, sorry. I have a Patreon now. It's a pay-what-you-want system with a $1 minimum, so I can make a little bit of cash from these videos. Mostly for supporting me and seeing or weighing in on videos early, but I do have some, and I will have an extended cut of this video on there where I talk about another Nintendo series I think could be great if their characters were Mario mainstays. And another fun surprise. Check it out if you're interested. My first choice is a group of characters who aren't exactly forgotten, but I still think would be great for future appearances. The Broodals from Super Mario Odyssey. You're probably thinking, really? You like those guys? But just hear me out. The Broodals are a group of wedding planners who help out Bowser in Super Mario Odyssey, and generally are seen as the replacement for the Koopalings there. They made for decent boss fights, but are some of the lesser memorable parts of the games I feel. Madame Broodal's design is very ugly, that didn't help with that. They haven't gotten any big appearances since Odyssey, and believe it or not, Odyssey was more than 5 years ago now. What really gives them potential for being interesting in these future appearances is that they're antagonists, but not explicitly villainous. They're in Odyssey because Bowser recruited their services as wedding planners. It's implied they only worked with Bowser because he hired them, and if that's not true, it's easy to make it so. That means if a new game, maybe an RPG of some kind, needs a scene at a wedding, the Broodals could easily be cameos and come into their own as the Mario universe's famous wedding planners with dubious morality. Heck, maybe if there's a Mario Kart track or a Mario Party board with a wedding theme, they could be there. I mean, they actually could extend the Broodals roles to party planners instead of just wedding planners for a Mario Party board. That way it's not just Kamek and Bowser Jr. wreaking havoc every time. Reintroducing the Broodals like this would make the Mario universe feel bigger, but also more interconnected. Plus, their morally dubious personalities are just an interesting thing to see in a Mario game where they're not actually an antagonist. Again, I wouldn't say the Broodals are that memorable compared to other recently introduced Mario characters, but they're great for inserting in a lot of different little roles, and there's an opportunity to make them something memorable there. My next choice is another boss from a relatively recent Mario game. Motley Bossblob. Is the fact that his name is so funny to say part of why I chose him? Perhaps. But look, I love this dude, and is another great non-Koopa boss. Well, it looks like a Koopa, I don't know what he is. His debut was in Super Mario 3D World and was one of the original bosses of that game. 3D World had some great bosses people don't really talk about, and they really made the game feel like more than just New Super Mario Bros. In 3D. A lot of people don't like the bosses in 2D Mario games, and it was pretty disappointing that Super Mario Bros. Wonder didn't have really good bosses, considering how unique the rest of that level design was there. So I think Motley could be a good way of having some more variety in the bosses, since his fight is probably the one that would work best in 2D compared to others from 3D World. And his boss fight involves him sucking up a bunch of blobs to become a giant boss you need to take out. Putting him in 2D kinda reminds me of some of the bigger scale bosses from Yoshi's Island, like Bert the Bashful, and Yoshi's Island bosses are great. It's a win. His boss fight also pairs fantastically with the double cherry power-up, so if they ever add that to a 2D game, which is admittedly unlikely since it might not work the best there, it could be really fun with Motley as a boss. I also want to add, for years I was running a fanfiction Mario comic, and look, I put Motley Bossblob in there. I have an older video I made about that comic, so check it out if you're interested, but it might not have the quality of my more recent videos. The Daisy vs Motley Bossblob fight was quite epic, if I do say so myself. I'm trying to avoid some of the more obvious characters on this, you know, the characters everybody talks about wanting back. That said, I just have to talk about the next one, even if it's a more obvious pick. Toadsworth. Toadsworth debuted in Super Mario Sunshine and is pretty prevalent in a lot of Paper Mario and Mario & Luigi games. He's a chancellor / royal advisor to Princess Peach, and so he's easy to keep around as a grandfather figure to the Mario cast. He kinda disappeared after the 2000s though. That might be because he never really had many appearances in Mario Kart games, or mainline games, besides the first New Super Mario Bros. Or Sunshine, obviously. Hey, why is the audio quality bad? It would have been really embarrassing if I had forgotten about Sunshine and had to record later and was too lazy to get my microphone in. That is despite his mainstay status in Mario parties and RPGs. I really like him though. His design is cool, and it's nice to have a Toad who feels more like an individual. Plus his brown color scheme kind of represents more different colors of mushrooms, you know? Somewhat infamously, Toadsworth was originally planned to be in the Mario movie, but was cut in favor of this one random unnamed advisor Toad. Lame. The biggest reason I think Toadsworth could be cool to bring back is that Nintendo is for everyone. Who's your grandpa supposed to play as in Mario Party? Obviously, elderly people want to see someone of their age represented. Why else do you think Tekken has Heihachi? Nintendo, bring back Toadsworth so grandparents can play Nintendo. You got their attention with the Wii, now you just have to reel them in with Toadsworth as your bait. Give them someone to play as. I'm only half joking here. Old people representation would give Mario some variety, and you can't let Cranky have all the fun. Mario and Luigi Brothership is coming out soon, so who knows. Hopefully he'll be in that game. The guy was very prevalent in the Mario and Luigi games after all. I hope there isn't a trailer for this game showing off Toadsworth later, and this part of this video hasn't aged poorly by the time this video is out. Also, in my comic, I made Toadsworth buff and I gave him sunglasses. He did die in the first chapter of the comic though. I did him a little dirty now that I'm thinking about it. As we all presumably know by this point, there are a ton of characters in the recurring Mario canon that come from Super Mario Bros. 2, which is a little bit strange since it's actually not even a real Mario game! Birdo, Bob-ombs, Pokey, Shy Guys, even some deep cuts like Ninjas. I love Ninjas so much, but there's one enemy from Mario 2 that hasn't gotten as much love despite being about as memorable. The Phanto. Technically, it's been referenced in Mario Kart and has appeared in Super Mario Maker 2, which was less than 5 years ago, but I think that's an exception. It was via a special Super Mario Bros. 2 themed power-up, so it's not exactly something original. Phantos are this weird ancient mask-looking thing. They lurk in caves or jars. Mario 2 is a weird game. Their main purpose is to hunt you until you lie in the burning pits of Hades for stealing their treasure. If you take a key in Mario 2 so that you can progress by opening a door, a Phanto will always awaken and pursue you with frightening persistence until you put that key down, unlock a door with it, or die. They're a really memorable part of the game that can actually be pretty scary, at least if you're a kid playing the game. Maybe I'm ascribing too much meaning to a random mask enemy, but not too many platformers were doing something akin to this in 1988, especially not the previous Mario games. The moment you figure out what a Phanto is and how to deal with it feels analogous to the moment a young player dies to the first Goomba in Super Mario Bros. It also reminds me of the creepy sun from Super Mario Bros. 3. We all know how memorable that little level gimmick was. Given how notable Phantos feel, it's kind of a shame they weren't used more often. Sure, they can't really be playable in Mario Kart, Nintendo are cowards, and their designs aren't quite as cool as Shy Guys, but they still could serve a really interesting gameplay purpose. Super Mario Bros. Wonder went crazy with level gimmicks and weird, memorable visual effects. So bringing back Phantos for a game like that would make for some more fun chaos. Or heck, imagine a Phanto in a 3D Mario game instead, running around in an expansive 3D open world space like Odyssey, desperate to get this key somewhere to shake off this ghost. Maybe there could be a Mario Party board where a Phanto will pursue you space by space if you've got a skeleton key you're not using. Is it a little bit strange for me to argue so vehemently for something as random as this? Perhaps, but you can't deny this is a really cool enemy from a Mario game, whose function could be expanded upon so much more if they come back. Phantos deserve more than just the top of the top 10 scariest Mario enemy list. Throughout my video, you might have noticed a distinct lack of characters originating from spin-offs like Donkey Kong, Wario Land, or even RPGs. Most of that is just because I only really want their characters back if the series comes back. Well, I mean, would I want Captain Syrup to be in more things? Absolutely. Put her in Mario Kart. But most of the reason I want her back is just because she was in Wario Land. I want Wario Land back. I'm also not the most familiar with a lot of RPGs like Paper Mario or Mario and Luigi, besides playing a bit of a few games, so characters from those might have missed out a bit here too. Anyways, I'm saying all of this because there's an exception to that no spin-offs trend. Vampire Wario. Seriously. Vampire Wario started as a transformation for Wario in Wario Land 3. Wario could transform at various points for puzzles. There were several other transformations too, but the point where Vampire Wario really became his own thing was in Dr. Mario 64. That game is really weird, because it's a Dr. Mario game where Wario is the secondary protagonist, and all of the enemies come from Wario Land 3. It's rare enough for a Mario spin-off to cross over with the mainline games, much less with another spin-off. The game was also an American exclusive, despite being developed in Japan, and it was later ported to Nintendo Puzzle Collection on GameCube, which was a Japan exclusive. Strange game. Vampire Wario was essentially the Akuma of this game. If you go through the story mode without losing one round as Wario, you face off against him. You better appreciate the footage I got, cause that shit is harder than it sounds. Dr. Mario 64 is surprisingly brutal sometimes. There's just something great about Wario as a vampire. His design is goofy, but the cape and purple skin kinda look cool in a stupid sort of way. It is Wario, after all. What do we know about Wario? He's obsessed with garlic. What do we know about vampires? They're weak to garlic. They are both immortal though. Oh, and vampires need to be invited to enter your home, and Wario does not need to be invited to break into your home and eat your food. Wario's the type of guy to spread butter on his toast and put an excessive amount of butter on his knife, and then put the excess butter full of crumbs back into the container. So that way when you're having toast, you get a mouthful of stale crumbs from another piece of toast. What was I talking about again? Even though Vampire Wario is just Wario, I love how Dr. Mario 64 makes it feel like Wario is a separate character from him, and I just think they should roll with that the same way they did with Metal Mario. Seriously, they need to add Vampire Wario to Mario Kart. Those games have a ton of variations on characters that still manage to be decently popular characters in their own right, and Wario hasn't ever gotten a variation of him playable, despite all the transformations he has. Metal Mario was in Dr. Mario 64 as the character you fight if you're playing as Wario, and haven't lost one round too, so he's sort of the inversion of Vampire Wario. Vampire Wario would add some neat variety to Mario Kart's roster if he was playable for sure, and I feel like he wouldn't feel too out of place. Think about it, from the perspective of a random middle-aged dad who works a 9 to 5 whose kid wants to play Mario with him. There's a skeleton Bowser and a Vampire Wario. Of course, it fits. Vampire Wario is too cool of a concept for Nintendo to fumble him. Also, Nintendo for sure has to add Ashley from WarioWare to Mario Kart, so then you got ghosts, witches, skeletons, and vampires. That's a great Halloween crew right there. I guess they can add Cat Rosalina for a black-furred cat, I don't know. Haha, you've fallen into my trap. It turns out this video was a Halloween special all along. It's October, we need to get into the season. Nintendo is pretty famously a gameplay-first company. A lot of their projects start life as just a gameplay concept, and the characters or IPs are attached to it later. As such, when Nintendo is bringing back a Mario character like this, there usually has to be a practical benefit or gameplay purpose for them. not always, but usually when Nintendo decides to bring back a deep-cut Mario character, it's for a reason. That's why I think it's fun to speculate on some ways Nintendo could bring back some characters who haven't gotten a chance to shine in a while. Speculation on this thing is a neat combination of who's the coolest characters and who could work if being brought back. At the very least, we can learn about how Mario's history is weird through stuff like this. Vampire Wario. That's great. Of course, if you have any favorite Mario characters you want back, I welcome discussion on that too. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.